being really separative. So hopefully that's the storm before the peace, so to speak. Okay, let's move on to our class. We're continuing with the talking about the book of Revelations, and we were into the opening of the sixth seal. The opening of the sixth seal is important because it symbolizes the opening of the third eye. And the third eye, when that is open, it allows the disciple to be able to see with much more clarity, to be able to see things he's never been able to see before, be able to perceive accurately. Now, normal people just can't seem to perceive accurately and unified on the physical plane. And this is exemplified by the division we have not only in the United States, but all over the world between the left and the right. And they're fighting everywhere. They just can't see the same. But there's a point of truth. And I'll tell you, if you take somebody from the extreme right and extreme left, and they witness an accident, and if they have some advantage for their side by twisting it around, well, they probably would, instead of testifying to what really happened. If there was some political advantage to making it distorted, a lot of people would do it. It's like they're not true to themselves about what they have really seen. And this happens a lot in the political world. People are not true to themselves about what they see. Therefore, their third eye, their spiritual eye, is clouded. So they can't see with that eye. We have to be true to ourselves. And if the truth goes against our mindset, our political or spiritual beliefs, or against maybe something that benefits us, we still have to go with it. And this is what the person has to do to open the third eye. He has to be true to thine own self, as I believe it was Shakespeare that said, and thou canst be false to any man. But as we look at all the commentators on TV, it's so obvious that a lot of these people are not even true to themselves. And so if they're not true to themselves, true to what they're actually witnessing in life, true to the facts that are available, then, and true to be open to additional facts on controversial subjects, then they will not be able to see with true vision. But when two people are true to themselves, and then they get together and they're seeing with the spiritual eye, they will see eye to eye. Because one person with the spiritual eye open will see with the same vision, see the same things as the other person with the spiritual eye open. Now, we've made some progress in this group in the fact that when we talk about things, there's pretty strong agreement, because the clouds of the spiritual eye are being removed by people that are seeking for the true spiritual reality. And this is an important point, in the fact that if we can be true to ourselves and true to what we see, true to what we know, then we can open that spiritual eye, which is a monumental achievement. And this is what the sixth seal is. The sixth seal has this opening of the third eye. And then we were talking about in previous times, the 144,000 representing the opening of all of the centers in the body is represented there. And now we're at the point where it talks about the 10 tribes. Is chapter 7 verses 5 through 8 talks about the sealing of 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes. And the sealing is really where the person changes his focus from the material world to the spiritual. Now, the interesting thing about the material versus the spiritual, when we're in the material world, the pull of the material world for the average person is probably over 100 times, maybe 1,000 times stronger than the pull of the spirit. And eventually, the pilgrim, as he progresses along and stumbles along through trial and error, for many lifetimes, he's completely unaware that there is spirit out there. You take the typical scientists and atheists out there right now, they do not even believe that spirit exists. They think everything is a product of the material world. So they don't even think it exists. They don't even put it in their equations. They don't even put it in their thought processing. Now, a handful of scientists and investigators do, and they're the ones that have really made progress. And you look at the great scientists of the past, they always put spirit in their equations, like Tesla and Newton was really big on the focusing on the spirit, and
Galileo and Einstein did.
Galileo, Einstein, Edison, they weren't conventional like some people say that Edison and Einstein were atheists, but they weren't atheists. They just didn't believe in a God sitting on the throne up there. But they saw intelligence in creation, and they recognized that intelligence. And so all the really great scientists of the past recognize spirit, but it's hard to find a scientist in the present time that recognizes the existence of the invisible spiritual world. And so, but anyway, the sealing of the 144,000 is a recognition of individuals that have moved from focusing on the material to the spirit. Because as we progress from lifetime to lifetime, we become more sensitive, and eventually the pilgrim recognizes there is a higher world out there that I can contact from within myself. And the contact is very faint at first, but it increases until finally the power of spirit has more pull than the power of the material world. So when you're faced with a decision between going with the material pull or the pull of the spirit, you will decide on the spiritual side. And this is when you are sealed. And it talks about the sealing, and of course it says 12,000 are sealed from each of the tribes of Israel. And people who take this literally think that there's going to be exactly 12,000 from each one of the 12 tribes. And but the literal will not manifest the way everybody thinks. What we want to look at is the spiritual connection, is that there's 12 different divisions and numerous ways that will manifest. So anyway, we're going to talk about this, but the interesting thing about the 12 tribes mentioned here is that the tribe of Dan is missing. It's replaced by the tribe of Manasseh. And that was one of the sons of Joseph. It fulfilled a prophecy made about Joseph by his father Jacob. He says, moreover, I have given unto thee one portion above thy brethren. So from Joseph will be an extra tribe. So Joseph gets two representatives in among the 12 tribes, him and his son Manasseh, which will complete the 12, and Dan will be excluded. Now, why is Dan excluded? Now, in the blessings to his kid, Jacob makes this strange statement about Dan. He says, Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. And because of this, a lot of people think that Dan is excluded because the Antichrist will come from Dan. And so that's an interesting little sidelight there. And symbolically, that's probably true, not necessarily a physical Hitler showing up, but the Antichrist energies come from this 13th, which is represented by Dan. And it's interesting that Jesus was the 13th in the molecule that he created, yet when he left, this 13th was taken over by the Pope, and he become an outside authority. So people look to a human individual for authority rather than the God within. And so Dan could represent that 13th, that outside external authority that takes the place of the inner God, where we all have to look to avoid the mark of the beast. Because to have the mark of the beast is to see your authority as God and man externalized on the earth as a prophet, priest, or king. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is that there's been numerous attempts to, I'm not going to go through, read all the verses here, but it just talks about each one of the 12 tribes has sealed from it 12,000, making 144,000 altogether. And in the past, many interpreters have tried to associate this with the 12 signs of the Zodiac. And there's good reason behind this, because concerning Joseph, it's written in Genesis, and he dreamed another dream and told it to his brethren and said, behold, I've dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars did obeisance to me. So he talks about the sun and the moon and the 11 stars and him. So the 11 stars and him equals 12. And then the sun and the moon, and these are all the main ingredients in astrology, is the sun and the moon and the 12 constellations of the Zodiac, represented by Joseph and his 11 brothers. So many have tried to figure this out. So I put a lot of thought in this, and here's what come up with is what I have deciphered as the most accurate representation of the tribes in connection to the Zodiac. First of all, it's interesting that the order that they're placed in is different than the Old Testament, and it's not birth order or anything. So many scriptural students are kind of curious about why they were placed in this particular order, but Judah is first, and Judah is the most prominent of the 12 tribes, because the Jewish people are associated as a whole with this tribe of Judah. And Judah is called the lion of the tribe of Judah. And Curtis, what sign is associated with the lion? Oh, he's missed him there. Yeah, Curtis, which sign is associated with the lion? Oh, you're on mute there. Okay, he's muted.
It's Leo.
Leo, right?
Well, I've been talking about Leo. I'm a double Leo. Yeah, that's
Yes, Curtis.
lion is a Leo. I represent all the cats, from the house cat up to the tiger, to the lion, to the panther, leopard, you name it.
Yeah, I asked Curtis because he's a real strong Leo, so he can identify with that. So
Yeah, and I was born in the year of the snake too, by the way.
now some argue that Judah is associated with Taurus or Aries. Taurus, I say, because Taurus represents the riches of the world, and the Jewish people are really good at accumulating money. Or Aries, because in the time of Moses, it was the age of Aries. But overall, I think the tribe of, Leo is best because it specifically calls Christ the lion of the tribe of Judah. Okay, so the next one is Reuben. Now he was the true firstborn. It's funny, the firstborn is mentioned second. And the firstborn represents the first fruits, and first fruits is associated with Taurus. So that's an interesting connection there. Third is Gad. The Hebrew for this name means troops. And during the age of Pisces, there were many wars and troops and conflicts. And so the Hebrew Gad spelled backwards equals also fish. And both of these things happen in the sign of Pisces. Tremendous wars are in the name of Christ. And Gad in the Hebrew spelled backwards equals fish, the symbol of Pisces. So Pisces is a good guess for Gad. Fourth is Asher. And the goddess Asherah is the goddess of plenty, and she is depicted as a virgin carrying a sheath of wheat. So Asher, we would say, is associated with Virgo. Okay, fifth is Nephilim, and Rachel named her handmaiden son this because with the wrestlings of God, she said, I have wrestled with my sister and I have prevailed. So we would say this is a sign of Capricorn because it's symbolized by the mountain goat that is able to struggle and achieve. Okay, six is Manasseh, and this is the one that replaces Dan. And the serpent linked with Dan is associated with Scorpio. So Manasseh, we would say, is represented by Scorpio. Seventh and eighth are Simeon and Levi, and it is written, the Bible associates these with war and battle. And so Simeon would be represented by Aries. Simeon is warlike, and Aries is the name of the god of war. And Levi would be Sagittarius. This is another fire sign, and its symbol is a bow, which is also associated with war. So Simeon and Levi would be associated with those two signs. Ninth and 10th are Issachar and Zebulun. Again, these two are mentioned together in the scriptures, and they're likewise grouped together in the book of Revelation. Issachar means he will bring reward. So Aquarius associated with water as a reward in the sign that pictures him bearing a jar, pouring living water to nourish thirsty souls. Zebulun is represented by Cancer, symbolized by the crab who hides in the sand. Water is associated with it since it is a water sign. And we're told that Zebulun will have like treasures in the sand, so to speak. And 11th is Joseph. The sign of Gemini fits him. It's a sign of the twins receiving twin blessings through the sons of Ephraim and Manasseh. The United States is sometimes called the land of Joseph. And what's interesting about this is the United States is ruled by this sign of Gemini. So Gemini fits Joseph very good. And the last is Benjamin, and he fits well into the sign of Libra, which is the only one left. He kind of was a balancing energy between the Joseph and his brothers. His brothers were all kind of on one side, and Joseph and Benjamin were on another line of thinking. And Benjamin was kind of in between, balancing the energies of the two there. So we have the 12 divisions, the 12 signs, and the 12 tribes represent not only the 12 signs, but the 12 petals and the heart center. The heart center has 12 petals in, and then you also have a heart center in the head with 12 petals. And these, as these 12 petals open, that will pave the way for the energies of the 12 signs and the 12 energies of love, wisdom to open and prepare the way for the sixth seal, which opens the spiritual eye. The spiritual eye for true seeing. When the spiritual eye is open, the disciple will see accurately on a number of different levels, beginning with just perception. Like I said, two people can witness an accident and interpret their perception differently because of their bias, not because of their seeing, but because of their feeling. So when the spiritual eye is open, the disciple bypasses interpreting by feeling and goes entirely by what he saw. And this is what a lot of people don't do. They do this with facts also. And in arguments you see on TV all the time and on the radio, two people have the same facts and they see them differently. They see them differently because of how they feel. They let their feelings interpret rather than seeing. And so when the spiritual eye is open, the lower emotions are completely bypassed and the disciple goes by what is actually seen. And two people, when they bypass their feelings and look at what is perceived, they will see the same thing.
Is this, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think this fills the scripture, my people shall see eye to eye when the Lord shall bring again Zion?
Right. In order to see eye to eye, the disciples will have to have the spiritual eye open to a degree. Okay. And if you have a group, say, of, I don't know, say 1,000 people, and you have 100 people with the spiritual eye open, they will be a powerful influence in opening the spiritual eye of those who are not yet into that, because they can have just a handful that have the eye open can influence the rest. Because when you see something that is true and you share it, the person has to see that it is true. and it can work in reverse. They did this experiment. I can't remember what the details, but they had objects where you had like 4 or 5 objects in the center that everybody was looking at, and they had the majority of the people. There was really like 4 objects, for instance. This is the way the experiment went. And they had the majority of the people in on the deception, and just a handful, just one individual. Yeah, it was just one individual at a time that didn't have a clue what was going on. Okay, so everybody in the group, they were asked how many objects were in the center, and there were really 4, but everybody said 5. And so they wanted to see how that would influence the one guy that felt like he was out of the loop. And with a little bit of repetition, the individual, 9 times out of 10, and he saw 4, but he started saying 5 like everybody else. He went along with the group because, and this is how people do not see with the spiritual eye, because
he became a lemming.
they deny what is actually seen with the vision, so their vision becomes clouded, and so their spiritual eye remains closed. You have to be able to be in a group where everybody is saying one thing that goes contrary to what you're seeing, and you do not deny what you see. Okay, but
JJ, you're talking about a lot of different psychological studies that are done. You've made lots of references to those. So I think the other aspect of that is understanding how your brain works, and understanding that your brain seeks to have, homeostasis to go along with the flow. And that's part of, that transitional period of being okay with seeing things differently, perceiving things differently, and understanding that it's okay and you're okay if you see things, a little bit different than other people.
yeah,
There's a lot more that could be said about that, but you've touched on that a lot today. Lots of different experiments within how your brain works and perception and stuff like that.
yeah, and the brain itself is part of the lower material world, and it's not helpful in seeing with true vision. To see with true vision, we have to bypass the brain, and the consciousness has to go towards spirit, and then you can see with true vision. So it's interesting that when the disciple has this problem when he realizes his true identity. His true identity is being one with God. And when he begins to sense this identity, the dweller on the threshold, his lower self that tries to keep him in the ego, comes up with this mantra. Who do you think you are? You think you are one with God? You think you are spiritual? You think you could be a prophet? You think you could be a teacher? Well, who do you think you are? You're just crazy. And this is the same situation when you're in this circle and everybody's saying there's 5 objects in the center and you're seeing 4. You think to yourself, well, who do I think I am that I'm the only one that sees 4? I must be wrong. And so the disciple has to learn to bypass this and see correctly, even if the whole world sees differently. Because the whole world sees differently doesn't mean they're seeing accurately. Because the world as a whole are seeing with distorted vision. Okay, any comments on that before we move on there?
Well, I had a comment on what you talked about earlier on the lineage of Joseph coming to the United States as Ephraim and Manasseh, because Ephraim went to England, and that area, Scotland, Wales, and those people came to America, which is us. So we are from the lineage of Ephraim. And some books say that the Indians that were here were from the lineage of Manasseh. So here we have Ephraim and Manasseh representing Joseph coming to the United States.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the prophecy about the seed of Joseph will go to the utmost bounds of the everlasting hills.
Over the walls, that people would go over the walls, it said, yeah.
But it's interesting, the everlasting hills, there's a chain of mountains that goes all the way around the earth. And part of it is the Rocky Mountains in the western United States, but then the chain goes under the oceans and goes up to the Himalayas and different mountain ranges. And there's a chain of mountains, which some people call the everlasting mountains. So if that's what was referred to in the prophecy, the utmost bounds of the everlasting mountains would be from where the prophecy was made. The utmost bounds would have been the Rocky Mountains in the United States. So in other words, the prophecy was saying the seed of Joseph would eventually go to as far as the Rocky Mountains in the United States. So it's an interesting prediction there.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Joseph was promised two blessings, a double blessing through Ephraim and Manasseh, and they came here to this country. So here we are, the land of promise, where God will bring again Zion.
Yeah.
In my opinion, we could be a seed thought of that whole project.
Yeah, we're right near the end, so we'll just read the next couple verses here to give us a taste of what's to come, give us something to contemplate. The next is about the great multitude. After this, I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations, kindreds, people, tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands, and cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb. And all the angels stood round about the throne and about the elders and the four beasts, and fell down before the throne on their faces and worshiped God, saying, Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be unto our God forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
So it's interesting, it talks about this great multitude. Now, first of all, a few verses back, it talked about the 144,000, which is a pretty sizable number, but it says in addition to these 144,000, there's a great multitude, so great that no man could number. Why would the number be so great that no man could number? What do you think?
Well, nobody can number all the cells in your body, that's for sure. I don't know if that has a correspondence.
Well, part of it's because in the spiritual world, the beings there consist of more than just the planet Earth. Think of how small we are in relation to the universe. We are on this planet Earth in a solar system. And how many solar systems are in our galaxy? Anybody know the number? It's at least 200 billion, okay? So how many lives are in those 200 billion star systems, okay? And then how many galaxies have we discovered so far?
A lot.
Yeah, we figure there's trillions of galaxies out there, and how many we haven't discovered is beyond number. So think of all the lives that have achieved Christ consciousness in the universe itself. It would be a number that, just like it says here, a number that is so great that no man can number. So it's interesting, and just the ones from the earth be quite a few, but when you figure in the spiritual world, it would, the higher lives would be that are one, would be all the spiritual lives in the universe that have achieved the true consciousness of Christ. So you'd have a pretty whopping big number there that have achieved that, even if it's only 1 out of 1,000,000 lives.
And only a small fraction of the spirits on this planet are in physical incarnation at one time.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of people, and there's entities associated with this earth that haven't even incarnated yet. They're waiting for the vibration to be heightened, so it's more comfortable for them. And then there's us, who are the crazy ones that just come down here no matter how bad the situation is. we want to tackle a lot of problems, and we need to experience a lot of spiritual growth. Okay, any comments or questions before we wrap it up? We'll continue on this vein next week when we get together at 2 p.m. next Sunday. And happy Father's Day to everybody.
Happy Father's Day.
Alive, let him know he's loved.
I've got a question, JJ.
Sure.
So going back to perception and the third eye, I'm of the understanding, get to the point where your third eye is even partially open. It's a progressive, step-by-step process, and it's more toward the end of the path, or what I mean by that is, in previous classes you've said that if we had no distortion in our belief systems, if we had no false thoughts, no distortion or illusion in our belief systems, we wouldn't be here. So part of the process of being here is working through that. With your third eye open and you have a perfect perception, see things perfectly, then we would start working on our own belief systems, and then we'd be here. So is the third eye opening toward the end of the process of us being on Earth?
Right, the third eye opening is at the end of the journey to becoming like Christ. So if you want to know what that's like,
none of us are experiencing that then.
Yeah, just study the life of Christ and think of what it would be like to be like him. And
well, do we ever get a blip of that? Because I feel like there, every once in a while, just for a second in time, I experience that, and then it goes away quickly. But do we ever experience that from time to time, or
okay? In the chakra that represents the third eye, there's 2 major petals representing duality. And in each one of these major petals, there's minor petals of 48 on the right and 48 on the left. And so you have 96 altogether. And most every seeker has a handful of these in operation, okay? But it's not till you get all 96 open and functioning that you become as clear as the Christ was when he was here. And
so what we will experience until we get to that point is partial clarity. We might see something more clear than what we were seeing it, but it's still gonna be a ways away from being perfectly clear.
Yeah, think of 96 little tunings. As you're tuning into a radio station, you know, you move the old-fashioned dial back and forth that become fuzzy and then clear and fuzzy and clear. And think of 96 increments to get to total clarity of vision. And the first step is just being able to perceive things accurately on the physical plane and interpret them as you see them. And a lot of people, most people can't even do that. But then you go up another plane, you're able to see information and interpret that accurately. And then you go up higher until you can actually see say you're the etheric light around objects, auras around people, and see things on the mental plane, so you can tap into the intuitive world and see things beyond the physical. And so there's lots of things that are open to vision as the third eye opens. And eventually you can, the disciple can see anywhere in the universe when the third eye is completely open. And very few people have achieved 100% opening. But there's been many that have had it open enough that they can tap into the spiritual internet through the oneness principle and get inspiration and impressions and things like this.
Well, that might be what Christ did. If his third eye was open when he walked the earth, because he could look into the belief systems of people that he just met and see which belief was blocking their healing and then remove it. So maybe that all factored into his third eye being open, and he could see that.
Right. The example of meeting the woman at the well is an example of him using the third eye, is that he read her mind and told her about her past. And she was so impressed, she ran and told all of her friends about him. Hey, come listen to this guy. This guy knew all about me. And that would be a power of the third eye being open, is being able to read the belief system of another person accurately without your filters getting. Yeah, if it's completely open and all 98 petals are activated, you can see anything you want. And no, I don't think anyone here in this group is there yet, but I think everybody in this group has some of the third eye open. And if it wasn't, you wouldn't be interested in these things. Because everybody here wants to see more than they're seeing now. So that's a good sign. But like I say, there's 96 petals altogether to be activated, and each petal brings more opening, brings more vision. Okay. Anything else? JJ. You betcha. Anything else before we sign off? Well, it's a good group here, and we will see you guys next week. Good to have you.
Bye.
Bye.
Next